Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshulaminitandjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Dvapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tan Maitaya Taravo Binedus Tam Savabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Abhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshai Kiptashta Kamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitram Sharanam Prapanna Brinde Namaste Charanadavindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvayavina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we will begin by offering our most humble obeisance under the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padmanita Lila Bhavishta Om Vishnu Padasta Tarsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padmanita Lila Bhavishta Om Vishnu Padasta Tarsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, our exalted Rupanuga Arga. And today, especially, we have the disappearance day of three exalted Vaishnavas, Govinda Das, Gauridasa Pandit, and Sri Rupa Gosvami. Right, so, we've been reading about Julana Yatra. However, this day must be discussed. Srila Gurudev in Vrindavan, generally at Rup Sanatan, would hold a big conference on this day and invite all the big pandas and scholars and leaders of the different mats and major temples in Vrindavan, and they would all come together and discuss for the entire day, hours and hours and hours, each of them giving their own contribution, and then Gurudev would speak last. And of course, he would always say that it's impossible to reach the limit of Rupa Goswami's glories, even on a full day with all these people speaking. It's just inconceivable, his contribution and his role, his identity, all of that. There's so much tattva, so many pastimes, it's phenomenal. Sometimes on this day we read from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 19th chapter, which gives some background of Rupa Goswami, but not so much pastimes in history, but more his identity and the mission and the mercy imparted to him by Mahaprabhu, by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And also, there is, this book marked, I think maybe from the last time. But also, Gurudev has many lectures about Rupa Goswami, so I was trying to think what to do. So I thought I'm going to read one of those lectures, because Gurudev would take the essence, most important things, and put them in his lecture. And then on our own, if we have some greed, have some interest, then we would pursue it further. Maybe we'll continue for a day or so We still have to read the second half of the Swing Festival pastime. All right, so in the but before we do Rupa Goswami, let's mention, I think the Govinda Das, I'm not sure, there's a number of Govinda Dasas. Mahaprabhu's personal servant was named Govinda Das. There's also Govinda Kaviraj. So I don't know which Govinda Das it is. Govinda Das's personal servant was with Mahaprabhu as Nimai Pandit, even in Navadvip from the very beginning, like a childhood friend. And he went with him to Puri, became his personal servant and guardian, the gatekeeper, right? Served him his meals, did so many personal services, and tried to protect him. And he actually became angry with Ramananda Roy and Sup Damodar because they would be with him in the Gambhira and sing all these verses. And in these verses, strong emotions of separation would be elicited in the heart of Mahaprabhu. And he would weep and drag his nails along the ground, rub his face against the wall. Govinda was so angry. Why are you doing this? Invoking these moods in him. Of course, these were exalted moods of separation, astonishing moods of prema. But for one who's in a close personal relationship, they're going to see things in their own way. He could see the suffering, right, of Mahaprabhu. And he's very, very protective. Govinda Das Kaviraj was the brother of Ramachandra Kaviraj, the dear friend of Narottam Das Thakur. And he was also a poet. He wrote that amazing song, Bhajahure Mana Shri Nandanandana, which many, many know. He wrote that song actually on his deathbed. He thought he was dying. Their family was a family of Shaktas. They worshipped the goddess, right? In a very sattvic form, right? The goddess Katyayani has many, many different forms. Some of them are ghastly, like Bhadrakali, with many arms and weapons and killing demons and drinking their blood. At least her associates do. But she's also very benefic, very benevolent to those who are worshiping in the proper way. And they worshipped in such a way that thinking that she was the supreme goddess, and by worshiping her, they would get liberation. The Brahmavads, right? And while he was very ill, near death, he was praying to the goddess, to take me with you, let me be liberated. And she said, I can't give you that. I'm not the highest. He said, what? You're not the highest? Who is? And she described Radha and Krishna and that. And his brother had been trying to convince him also, Ramachandra, and they come from a famous line of poets. There's a whole history of the grandfather and others. And then he got her mercy and her instruction, and then he became a devotee. And then he wrote that song, actually, about the temporary nature of this world, and it's, all the enjoyment. It's so temporary. It's like a drop of water on the tip of a lotus falling. In any case, he wrote that song, and they sent it to Rupa Goswami, who greatly appreciated it, and told him he should write more. And he wrote many, many, many songs, and he became a great devotee. So I'm not sure which Govinda Das it is, and there may be others. But also Gauridasa Pandit. Gauridasa Pandit, very close friend of Mahaprabhu and Nityananda. And he is one of the 12 Gopals, one of the very intimate, most intimate associates of Krishna as a friend, and Baladev, Subal Saka, Priyanarma Saka. And he had many remarkable pastimes, both in Krishna Leela, of course. There are unlimited things we could say, and also Mahaprabhu's Leela, but probably the most famous thing relates to the song that we sing, Deva Di Deva Goda Chandra Gauridasa Mandire, when Mahaprabhu and Nityananda came and visited him. One time they came together, one time Mahaprabhu came by himself in a boat, and he had an oar, and he rowed himself across the river, and that oar is still there at the place where Gauridasa Pandit was living in Ambika Kalna. The railroad, if you take the railroad up from Navadvip, you'll come to Ambika Kalna. Later, at the end of his life, he retired and went to Vrindavan, and he did bhajan in a place we now know as Dira Samira, the place also where Jnana Chandra Prabhu saw Gopal Guru after Gopal Guru had left his body and was placed in Samadhi. He was manifesting himself and doing bhajan in Vrindavan. Anyway, that was the place of Gauridasa Pandit as well, and there's a bhajan kuti, I think a Samadhi also. Yeah. Very nice place. And both Nityananda Mahaprabhu came to visit him, and I heard the story in two ways. I'll tell it this way. They were there, they were going to leave after a day or two, and he couldn't bear it. He said, no, please don't leave, please don't leave. And his love was so strong that, okay, we'll stay one more night. They stayed one more night, and then they had to leave, right? So he said, no, no. And now I've heard this two ways. One, they said, we will stay here in our deity form. And they manifested two deities. The other I heard was that the deities were already there. But I think they manifested the deity. Anyway, the important thing is that when they said, we are here in our deity form, and those are non-different from us, then Gauridasa said, all right, then you two stay and the deities can go. So Mahaprabhu and Nityananda then took the form of the deities, and the deities got up and started to walk out the door, Mahaprabhu and Nityananda. And he said, no, wait, you stay, and you go. And then the deities that Nityananda and Mahaprabhu had become, they got up and they walked out, and the other deities took the form. And this went on 2 or 3 times, or 3 or 4 times. And then finally he realized they are non-different, right? And then he kept those deities and he worshipped them. And they're still there in Ambika Kalna. If you go there, you can go by boat or you can go by road. And they're very big, quite tall, very straight, very beautiful deities, very gorgeous. So this is his separation day as well. And Rupa Goswami, his day, Rupa Goswami, of course, is our Abhideya Acharya and the brother of Sanatan. They were both ministers in the court of Nawab Hussain Shah. They were forced to become ministers. You've heard that story before, how Nawab Hussain Shah had heard of them and their intelligence and brought them to his court and said, I want you to be my ministers. Sanatan would be the prime minister, Rupa Goswami would be his personal secretary, and Anupam, the youngest brother, who was the father of Jiva Goswami, he would become the treasurer. They were all very, very bright. And so, and they served in that way. They didn't want to, of course, but he said that if you don't serve, then I will go on a rampage and destroy every temple in Bengal. So they had to. But then later, while they were living in Ramakeli, Mahaprabhu came. Ostensibly, he was on his way to Vrindavan, but Ramakeli is in the opposite direction from Vrindavan. And he went there first, and the crowds were so huge. This is detailed in Chaitanya Bhagavat, that hundreds of thousands of people are following Mahaprabhu everywhere. Crazy Bengalis, right? Very, devotional, obviously. And everywhere he went, they were taking the dust of his feet, huge holes in the roads, wherever Mahaprabhu stepped, giant holes everywhere. And Mahaprabhu visited with the 3 brothers, and then indicated his intention to go to Vrindavan, and Sanatana Goswami said, you can't go to Vrindavan with all these people. It will completely destroy your experience and the whole mood that is in Vrindavan. So you should go alone. And Mahaprabhu said, yes, I know. Actually, my only reason really coming here was to see you three. And then he went back to Puri for some time. So not too long after, Mahaprabhu then went, he did go to Vrindavan. He went on a giant tour all over South India, 6 years, and he went to Vrindavan as well. And when he was in there, Rupa Goswami had heard, and he was on his way to Vrindavan. He only got as far as Prayag, which is on the Jamuna near Vrindavan, but not there yet. Mahaprabhu had just left Vrindavan, and he was on his way back. And they had a very long, beautiful discourse, which is in the 19th chapter, summarized, obviously, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then Mahaprabhu was going back to Puri, and Rupa wanted to go, and he said, no, you go to Vrindavan. You must go to Vrindavan. And he gave him the order, all that I've given to you, you should write books, reveal this to the world. You should discover the lost pastime places of Krishna and the Brajbasis, reestablish all these, beautiful tirthas. You should discover the lost deities, right? Especially Madan Mohan, Govindaji, and Gopinath. And there were others that were discovered. Guru Govinda was there, Dauji, some other deities. And you should, by your personal example, show perfect Vaishnav Sadachar behavior, right? So that was the order that he gave to Rupa, to Sanatan. And Rupa Goswami, when Mahaprabhu was leaving, he just fainted in separation, but he did go. And he became the chief of the Goswamis. And he did discover the Govindaji deity. After many years, he was very distraught not being able to find that deity. And one day, during his parikram, or at some point, he was really, really distraught and weeping, and a beautiful young boy came to him and said, "Oh, Babu, why are you crying?" And he described, "I'm not able to fulfill this desire of my worshipable Lord, my Mahaprabhu." And he said, "What are you trying to do?" And he said, "Oh, I'm trying to find the lost deity of Govindaji." When the Muslims came and invaded, the pujaris hid these deities in different places, right? Gopinath they found buried in the river. The Jamuna had changed course, and buried in the mud along the riverbank was Gopinath. Madan Mohan was found near the present-day temple, just below, by Advaita Acharya, this place called Advaitavat. And then he took him to Mathura to be worshipped for some time. And then when Sanatan came, the deity demanded that he go back with him to Vrindavan. But Govindaji had not been found, and so the boy said, "I saw something extraordinary that might help." There's a hill called Gotila, right? Gomata Tila, that means the hill of the beautiful cow. And every day at noon, a very beautiful white cow goes up to this spot and without any prompting releases her milk onto this spot. And he said, "This might be the place." And so the boy left, and he was a very beautiful boy, by the way. Cowherd boy, very extraordinary complexion. And talking with him, Rupa Goswami's heart was filled with great, great joy. And so then he determined, yes, we should check that place. I don't remember if the boy came to him in a dream later. Sometimes that happens. I haven't read the story in many years. But any case, inspired by that special boy, he did get the villagers, and they went up to that spot, and they dug there, and they found the deity of Govindaji. And then they began the worship. And then many years later, that extraordinary temple was built. So he did that. But I'm going to read a couple of verses from the 19th chapter, which describe, in the words of Krishna's Kaviraj, about Rupa Goswami, his mission, identity. So, while Mahaprabhu was in Prayag, the crowds were incredible, and it could be somewhat disturbing. Rupa Goswami met him there, Rupa and Anupam, and their behavior was very high quality. Whoops, what happened here? I think they met Mahaprabhu at the same time that Vallabhacharya was with Mahaprabhu. And they were very humble, and Vallabhacharya was very impressed with their conduct. Yes. And so he took Mahaprabhu to a special place in Prayag, and then due to the great crowds in Prayag, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to a place called Dashavameda Ghat. It was there that the Lord instructed Sri Rupa Goswami and empowered him in the philosophy of devotional service. Srila Prabhupada quotes in his purport, very special, a verse from the Antya-lila, chapter 7, Kali Kalera Dharma Krishna Nama Sankirtana Krishna Shakti Vina Nahe Tara Pravartan. He quoted that a lot, actually. And it means one cannot spread the holy name of Krishna without being specifically empowered by Lord Krishna. Right? And he goes on to say that a devotee who receives this power from the Lord must be considered very fortunate. Now, here's a statement that applies to us. The Krishna consciousness movement is spreading to enlighten people about their real position, their original relationship with Krishna. One requires Krishna's special power in order to be able to do this. People forget their relationship with Krishna and work under the spell of Maya life after life, transmigrating from one body to another. This is the process of material existence. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna personally descends to teach people that their position in the material world is a mistaken one. The Lord again comes, that's Krishna, Bhagavad Gita, right? The Lord again comes as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to induce people to take to Krishna consciousness. The Lord also empowers a special devotee to teach people their constitutional position. And he would quote that time to time because frequently he was criticized for his activities. Devotees who were not similarly empowered or ordered to do the same thing, maybe ordered but not empowered, could not understand all of Srila Prabhupada's methods, his grace, and neither they could understand the speed with which his movement was spreading all over the world. They, criticized it in many ways, that it's not the perfect representation of the teachings of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada and Mahaprabhu, because Srila Prabhupada made adjustments according to the audience that he was teaching. He was taking this outside of India for the very first time. Well, Saraswati Prabhupada had sent some devotees to England, they'd been in Germany, Burma, maybe Malaysia, but they were not successful. Something, but no real success. And it was our Srila Prabhupada's efforts that broke the dam and opened the flood of Mahaprabhu's movement all over the world outside of India, and then back to India. And he's making the point here that this could only have been done by Krishna's empowerment. Right? And preaching in general can only be done when one is empowered by Krishna, Mahaprabhu, and their representatives, from Nityananda Prabhu, all of our Guru Varga. So our own capacity, you have to be always aware of that. It comes from Sri Guru. When Srila Prabhupada's movement was going everywhere, we had the personal experience of being able to affect and inspire people in a way that we never could have based on our own individual accomplishments in bhakti, our own level of achievement. But just as Mahaprabhu infused, and Nityananda Prabhu infused love of God and power into the hearts of anyone they met, and then those persons were able to go and do the same thing to anyone they met. They'd go back to their village. The entire village would become inspired with prem. And then a visitor to that village would get the same thing and go back to his village in a similar way, not to the same degree. But Srila Prabhupada was not only carrying this message himself as Nityananda Avesh, empowered by Nityananda, but as Nityananda was able to do, infusing that power in others, his power was carried through his angas, his angas and upangas, all over the world. And thus, neophyte devotees were able to open up temples, establish chanting, publish books all over the world, right? The power of the Lord, it's clear, it becomes, this part, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahe Tara Pravatan. Without that empowerment, you can never do this. And so Rupa Goswami was the main choice. He had many disciples, obviously many eternal associates, but of all of them, Rupa Goswami was specifically chosen to impart this message that's become clear in some subsequent verses. Srila Gurudev says in one lecture, even Srup Damodar and Ramananda Roy didn't do this. They had the knowledge, of course, Lalita, Vishaka, but Rupa Goswami was chosen. Why? Well, one reason is, what did Mahaprabhu come to give? He came to, of course, taste three special unfulfilled desires, right, of his own. Right? What is the position of Radhika, right? What is the glory of her love, the nature of her love? What does she see when she sees me? Krishna's thinking. I know what I experience when I see myself. What does she experience? That causes this joy, that causes this extraordinary transformation. And what is that happiness that she feels when she does see me and she does serve me, that exceeds even my own pleasure? So Krishna wanted to taste that, so internally he came for that, but he also came to share this, to share the nature of Rag Anuga Bhakti, Rag Marg, spontaneous attraction and love for Krishna, specifically that of the Brajbasis, right? The moods of Vrindavan. The moods of Vrindavan had not been given, really, since the last day of Lord Brahma. Krishna comes only once in a day of Lord Brahma. Mahaprabhu follows him. So Braj Prem, the Prem of Vaikuntha was known, right? But the secrets of Krishna and his Leela were lost. And so Mahaprabhu came to deliver that, and most specifically, the understanding the glory of the gopis, right? Ramyakachet Upasana Brajabadu Vargena Ja Kalpita, that the mood and love of the Brajavadus, the Brajadevis, is the topmost kind of love of God, right? Topmost love of God. And of all of that, he wanted to specifically impart the glories of the service of the maidservants of Srimati Radhika, right? Not even to be a gopi as a beloved of Krishna directly, like Sambhog Ichamai, to be Krishna's direct lover, but rather to be the servant of Srimati Radhika in her service and her loving dealings with Krishna, and the secret and extraordinary nature of that Manjari Bhav. And of all the Manjaris, Rupa Manjari is the topmost. She's Kaya Vyuha of Srimati Radhika. She shares Radhika's beauty. She understands all of Radhika's moods. She's so intimate with Radhika. And in the same way that Rupa Manjari was intimate and serving, not in the same way, but as Rupa Manjari serving Srimati Radhika, Rupa Goswami is serving Mahaprabhu in the mood of Srimati Radhika. And this will be described in a subsequent verse. So, he goes on to say, Krishna Tattva Bhakti Tattva Rasa Tattva Pranta Sabha Sakaila Prabhu Bhagavat Siddhanta. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught Srila Rupa Goswami the ultimate limits of the truth about Lord Krishna, the truth about devotional service, and the truth about transcendental mellows, culminating in conjugal love between Radha and Krishna. Finally, he told Rupa Goswami about the ultimate conclusions of Srimad Bhagavatam. And that will be summarized in this later chapter. Then, Ramananda Pashe Yata Siddhanta Shunila Rupe Kripa Koritaha Sabha Sacharila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught Rupa Goswami all the conclusions he had heard from Ramananda Roy and duly empowered him so that he could understand them. Isn't that interesting? Mahaprabhu is the ocean of conclusive truth. Like Krishna says, Vedaischa savayad aham eva vedyo vedanta kudveda vedeva chaham. I am the compiler of the Vedas. I am the Vedas, and I know the Vedas as they are. It's all coming from him. But as Mahaprabhu, Krishna is the Vishaya Tattva. He is in the role of, he is, his very nature, he is the Supreme Lord, the object of everyone's service, and he tastes rasa from that perspective. He's attracted to the love of his servants. He's controlled by that love, and he exchanges love in that way. And it's rather extraordinary, right, in every way. And he's the topmost enjoyer. He's Rasik Shekhar. And yet he knows that somehow or other my devotees, they experience pleasure even greater than me, especially Srimati Radhika. So he wants to taste that, right? So as Mahaprabhu, in essence, he becomes Srimati Radhika herself. He identifies, he considers himself internally like that. She covers him and infuses him with that self-conception. You know, Radha and Krishna again become one, and he feels that I am the devotee. So he's Radhika, and Rupa Goswami is serving him. As Rupa Manjari, he serves Radhika, and as Rupa Goswami, he serves Mahaprabhu. I'm looking for this one verse, and it describes, just as Lord Brahma was empowered within the heart by the Lord with all the conclusions of Vedic knowledge, similarly Rupa Goswami was empowered by Lord Chaitanya in the same way. Right? But of course, the empowerment given to Rupa Goswami was even higher than Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma was still a conditioned soul, right? Extraordinarily advanced, and now he's the leader of our sampradaya, right? But he's not as high as Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami is an eternal associate of, and the most beloved maidservant of Srimati Radhika. So, then we have, Ya prageva priyaguna ganayar gadabadapi mukta geya yasad rasi iva paromurta evapya murta premalapair drihatara parisanga rangai prayage tam sri rupam samam manupam men anujagraha deva. From the very beginning, Sri Rupa Goswami was deeply attracted by the transcendental qualities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thus, he was permanently relieved from family life. Srila Rupa Goswami and his younger brother Balaba were blessed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. although the Lord was transcendently situated in his transcendental eternal form, at Prayag, he told Rupa Goswami about transcendental ecstatic love of Krishna. The Lord then embraced him very fondly and bestowed all his mercy upon him. And in the previous verse had been mentioned that he had received it from Ramananda Roy. Oh, I didn't conclude my point. So he comes in the mood of a devotee, but he's also coming as the universal teacher of the process of devotion. And his entire life was to show that. Initially, he feigns being an ordinary scholar, not very interested in devotion. Although internally he was experiencing it in the highest ways, he's showing as if, oh, I'm just a scholar. But he became the greatest scholar. So no one could oppose him. So amongst scholars, he was topmost. And then what did he have? He had the blessings and well wishes of his eternal associates, who, because of the covering of Yogamaya, didn't know that he was their eternal master. All they knew was that he is their beloved Nimai. They had full love and attraction for him, but they were thinking, poor Nimai, he's just a scholar. If only Nimai could become a devotee, then everything would be so wonderful. He's the topmost. Who could stand against him? Then nobody could oppose us or thwart our devotional actions. So the devotees were blessing him, right? Even when he was arguing with them and pretending to feign disinterest. Then, by chance, he met Ishwar Puri on the streets of Navadvip, walking, and they had a mutual attraction to one another. And then they spent the next many weeks together for many hours a day at the house of Gopinath Acharya. And he heard from Ishwar Puri, and they had discussions. And so that's how bhakti becomes more and more solidified, right? First he's living in the Dham. He's performing bhakti sukriti, because he's worshiping his deity, worshiping Tulsi, getting the blessings of the Vaishnavas, right? Doing all these things. Then he meets a great personality. Now his faith is becoming more solidified. Then he goes to Gaya in order to do the Shraddha for his ceremony. And there, by chance, he meets again Ishwar Puri. His faith now, remember this is Leela, has firm, solidified, matured, and he takes initiation, comes back fully absorbed in love of God. But even then, he wants to take further instruction, right? So he serves the devotees, takes their blessings, shows himself as the Yuga avatar, right? But also retreats from that position in order to continue and to be undisturbed in his desire to taste the sentiments of devotion. He sometimes had to act like Yuga avatar to inspire the devotees and to direct them in the service of spreading love of God, and then he would but become internally absorbed in the mood of devotion. And that is what he was in when he was traveling around South India. Sometimes, of course, his chanting, he was going everywhere and delivering the message of love of God. So he was acting and spreading Yuga Dharma, but simultaneously, what was his real intent? Was to meet Ramananda Roy. And there he heard the most confidential teachings about Radhabhav and even Radhadasyam. Although he's not tasting Radhadasyam. Actually, he can even taste that. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita purports about Rathayatra, Srila Prabhupada says that Mahaprabhu will taste the moods of all the different kinds of gopis. And he tasted the moods of not only the different gopis, but the different devotees of all the avatars, right? But he took instruction. And then he imparted that instruction. Why did Ramananda Roy, why was he chosen as the teacher? Because Mahaprabhu, again, even though he's Mahaprabhu, Gurudev would say that he needed to go to the school of Srimati Radharani. She's the headmistress, and Srup Damodar and Roy Ramananda being her chief devotees and friends, can explain this to Mahaprabhu. And specifically, Ramananda Roy, because he's Vishaka Devi. Vishaka Devi is almost a duplicate of Radhika in her moods and in the way she expresses and tastes bhakti. Lalita is more left-wing to enhance the ras and the lila, but Vishaka is very similar to Radhika. So then he taught that. And then here's a very important verse. All the tattva of Rupa Goswami, his identity and everything's in this verse. Priya Sarupe, Dayata Sarupe, Prema Sarupe, Sahajabi Rupe, Nijanu Rupe, Prabhadeka Rupe, Tatana Rupe, Savilasa Rupe. Indeed, Srila Rupa Goswami, whose dear friend was Swarup Damodar, was the exact replica of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he was very, very dear to the Lord. Being the embodiment of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love, Rupa Goswami was naturally very beautiful. He very carefully followed the principles enunciated by the Lord, and he was a competent person to explain properly the pastimes of Lord Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expanded his mercy to Srila Rupa Goswami just so he could render service by writing transcendental literatures. There's no purport on this verse, but Srila Prabhupada has purports that explain many things later. But Sri Rupa Goswami, whose very dear friend was Swarup Damodar, Priya Sarupe, he is very dear to Swarup Damodar, which is important because Swarup Damodar was one of his Shiksha Gurus. Swarup Damodar is Lalita. Rupa Manjari serves under Lalita Devi, right? Also Vishaka, but Lalita is really the leader of all of them. And so he's very, very close to Swarup Damodar in the same way. And he is the exact replica of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Rupa Manjari looks just like Radhika, slightly younger version of Radhika. Rupa Goswami looks like Mahaprabhu. And why? Because his moods, his love, it manifested in that same way, in his form and his complexion. And he was very, very dear to the Lord, as Rupa Manjari, very, very dear to Radhika. Being the embodiment of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love, Rupa Goswami was naturally very beautiful, right? That's how he has the name Rupa. Rupa means form. He's the embodiment and form of what? Of the love of Mahaprabhu. Rupa Manjari, she's what? She's the embodiment, the expression of Radhika's own love. And Ramananda Roy says that Radhika is the very, she's the very personification of Mahabhav. This is her form, it's Mahabhav. She is love itself. And as is Mahaprabhu, and Rupa Goswami embodies that same quality, with the speciality of identifying as the servant of Mahaprabhu, as Rupa Manjari is a servant of Srimati Radhika. And thus, he also, and very beautiful, he very carefully followed the principles enunciated by the Lord. His conduct was perfect, because Mahaprabhu was teaching not just philosophy, but behavior. Rupa Manjari's behavior perfectly aligned with the desires of Srimati Radharani. In one lecture, I think we'll have to read this lecture tomorrow, so many interesting points. Gurudev says that Rupa Manjari is so aligned with Radhika's mood that she may directly oppose even Krishna's order. Krishna may order her or request her to do something, and she will oppose it, understanding Radhika's mood. So in Leela, Rupa Manjari is completely aligned with the desires of Srimati Radharani. In this Leela, as the perfection of the sadhak, they're acting like sadhaks, he perfectly follows devotional principles and perfectly teaches them. Right? And so he was properly competent to explain the pastimes of Lord Krishna. And so Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expanded his mercy to Srila Rupa Goswami just so he could render service by writing transcendental literatures. That was his main service. And E Matta Karnapura Like Stane Stane Prabhu Kripa Kaila Yaiche Rupa Sanatane. The characteristics of Srila Rupa Goswami have thus been described in various places by the poet Kavi Kanapur. An account has also been given of how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bestowed his causeless mercy upon Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatana Goswami. Right? And then this goes on to explain how they were also the objects of great love and affection by all the associates of Mahaprabhu, and all those especially who had gone to Puri to be with Mahaprabhu. And if anyone was ever coming from Vrindavan to Puri, as would happen somewhat regularly, everyone would always inquire, how are Rupa, how are Sanatan, how do they eat, where do they live, what are they doing, what are they writing, what's going on, right? I remember when I was a new devotee, and we were waiting for Srila Prabhupada to come, right? And generally, I noticed one thing about the temple. Whenever anybody was walking around, everyone would always say, Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada said that. Every action that you were doing, every service you were performing, it was based on Prabhupada said. So then Srila Prabhupada finally came to America, and he had first gone to Boston, and one devotee came down from Boston, this devotee named Sarup, and all the devotees surrounded him. Oh, what did Srila Prabhupada talk about? How's his health? What's he doing? This and that. And they just had all these questions, and then he just happily related stories, and everybody was immersed in bliss, because everybody wants to hear the pastimes of the pure devotee, and especially Rupa Goswami. So we will, I guess tomorrow, we'll have to read this lecture tomorrow about Rupa Goswami. And then taste something. This is a lecture that Gurudev gave. It appears, this is one of the lectures he gave in front of the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami. Okay, in 2005, in August. I don't think I was in India at that time. Oh, I was in India. we were in Bangalore. Yeah, we were in Bangalore at that time. Yeah, but all those lucky souls, you could see this picture. I don't know if this is the picture of that time or not. I see Sundar Gopal, Gurudev, so many others. All right. Okay. So we'll stop here. Let's see. I'm going to stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Srila Goswami Pad ki jai, Sri Gauridasa Pandit ki jai, Sri Govinda Das ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Bol.